Hey, I'd like to call the order for the June 8th, 2021 meeting of the Nevada Board of Wildlife Commissioners Mule Deer Enhancement Program, Management Areas Area 18 and 20 at 6:01 p.m. We'll take a quick kind of a roll call. If you'd like to do a brief introduction of who you are and who you represent, we'll start with Glenn Bunch.
Glenn Bunch, represent Mineral County sportsman.
Jesse Latin. Jesse, you're muted. There it is. Should have something there.
Let's try it now. Nope, you're back muted again.
You got
Okay. Yeah, I got you now.
Jesse Latin, sportsman from Churchill County.
Carl Urquiaga.
Yeah, Carl Urquiaga, sportsman, Churchill County as well.
Joe Crawford.
Joe Crawford, Lyon County.
Kenny Perkle.
Kenny Perkle, habitat biologist at the Fawn Field Office.
And Cooper Munson.
Cooper Munson, the Western Region Game Division Supervisor.
So for possible action, everybody was sent an agenda. So the approval of the agenda of the subcommittee, where we the agenda and may take action to approve the agenda. The subcommittee may remove items from the agenda, combine items for consideration, or take items out of order. So for this action, we will now go into a public comment period. At 3 minutes.
Do any of the subcommittee members have any comments to the agenda?
Glenn Bunch with Mineral, I have none.
I didn't do my 3-minute clock down. So there's no public comment. We'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda as written. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion carried. The third agenda item will be the report or the PowerPoint presentation on the Mule Deer Enhancement Program for Churchill, Mineral, and parts of Lyon County. And we can present that now. Churchill and Mineral Counties. The presentation components for the Mule Deer Enhancement Program. It goes over the concept and details of the statewide Mule Deer Enhancement Program with oversight committees and staff, list of area groups, and then associated funding sources. Our team for Area 18 and 20 will have area descriptions, population metrics, major impacts to the herd, past and current habitat actions, and research efforts. We will create an oversight committee that will provide input to the Wildlife Commission and NDOW with various mule deer habitat management challenges. Create mule deer teams representing various areas and hunt unit groups around the state. These teams include both game and habitat biologists from NDOW. NDOW biologists provide each team with current and historic information related to mule deer herds. The mule deer teams will discuss various mule deer limiting factors and make recommendations about how to address the issues. The Mule Deer Enhancement Program is consistent with the management plan for mule deer, the Sagebrush Conservation Initiative by the Department of Interior, which looks into habitat and creating habitat for wildlife species. The Nevada Wildlife Action Plan, which the plan goes over species that might need a lot more help. They might be in peril. Changes to the categorical exclusions, the relevancy roadmap in relation to how hunting and sportsmen are relevant in today's world, the Recovering Americans Wildlife Act, which is 1.4 billion that might be divvied up among the states to recover a lot of wildlife, and NDOW's mission statement. The Oversight Committee includes Wildlife Commissioners Casey Keel, John Almberg, Tom Barnes, Shane Rogers, USDA Rangeland Scientist Charlie Clements, Resource Specialist Jeremy Drew, Corey Lytle with the Meadow Valley Wildlife Unlimited, Jim Rackley of the Nevada Muleys, Josh Vittori, former president of Nevada Bighorns Unlimited, BLM Deputy State Director Alan Shepard, and Associated U.S. Forest Service. Also, NDOW staff to the Oversight Committee will include Cody Schroeder, Game Division staff for Mule Deer, Alan Janae, Habitat Division Administrator, and Mike Scott, Game Division Administrator. There's 14 mule deer teams. There's 14 mule deer teams associated with the different counties throughout the state. And the funding sources, the Mule Deer Enhancement Program will rely on existing sources of funding for implementation of projects approved by the Oversight Committee. Some of this funding could be gained from the Heritage Fund, non-government organization or partners, federal land management agencies, predator fund available, federal grants, and habitat conservation fee. Each committee member will have a mule deer limiting ranking sheet, and it'll rank the factors that are most significant in their eyes in relation to mule deer numbers and what's holding them back. And so it'll be based on unit groups, area 18, area 20, on what impacts in their eyes have the greatest impact to the mule deer herd. And then there'll be a mule deer needs assessment, which will go over how implementation and strategy can be used to gain the goals that you need to make improved mule deer habitat. Some of these are, wildfire and invasive species, conifer, and lack of diversity of habitat. And continuing on, lack of connectivity, predation, wildlife health and disease, and other opportunities. And I'm sure this can evolve. If there's other issues, we can add on to the needs assessment if there's some other issue that comes forward. Mule deer key browse species in Churchill and Mineral. The Churchill and Mineral have enough species, but they lack some of the diversity that some of the bigger units of deer, like Area 6 and Area 7 and 10, where there's a lot more browse component. The primary brush species available to Mineral and Churchill County deer are four-winged saltbrush, sagebrush, ephedra, currant, desert peach, woods rose, snowberry, serviceberry, which is limited, bitterbrush, which is limited in Churchill, aspen, mountain mahogany, chokecherry, and elderberry. A little bit of history of mule deer in Nevada. Pre-settlement of Nevada, mule deer numbers were low in Nevada in the 1900s to 1920s. Early on, even in Area 10, our biggest mule deer herd in the state, it made the paper where somebody saw 10 to 15 deer. The post-settlement of Nevada, mule deer numbers increased as a result of more favorable habitat conditions, more browse, lower predator numbers. There was a huge habitat conversion with not the same invasive species. So you had a lot of pinyon and juniper, you had a lot of sagebrush, everything was utilized as a resource. And what came back was early cereal stage shrub communities and grass communities that led to some of the post eruptions that we saw in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. Mule deer units in Churchill County, 181 through 184, mainly composing of the Stillwaters, Clan Alpines, Desatoyas, and the New Pass area with the Lahontan Valley. Mule deer units in Mineral and Lyon, basically most of the mule deer, in the Wasatch Range, the Pine Grove Hills, the Excelsior Range, with resident deer in 205, and then resident deer in 203 in Smith and Mason Valleys. And this is just a combined picture or slideshow of all the mule deer units, Mineral, Lyon, and Churchill counties combined. Churchill County population estimates. It indicates a high variability from 1981 to 1992. 1986 showed a record estimate of 2,655 mule deer. The long-term average, 1980 to 2020, is about 1,300 mule deer. The decade averages are as follows. 1980 to 1990 is 1,282 mule deer. 1990 to 2000, 1,100 mule deer. 2000 to 2020, 1,400 mule deer. And the period from 2002 to 2020 shows a stable population trend. Unit 181 buck harvest, trend all hunts. We have some peaks and we have some valleys, but for the most part, from 2004 to 2008, 18, it's averaging about 80 to 95 bucks killed per year, with some peaks like in 2000 and some peaks in the 1990s. 181 through 184, 4 point or better, harvested all hunts. A lot of it's dependent on who draws the tags and what their expectations is. And 18 can be a harder unit to hunt as far as finding bucks and killing bucks. And some years they do pretty good, and they're in 40s to the 50%. And but the long-term trend going into 2018 is, closer to 40%, 4 point or better. The spring sample size in 18 is pretty much conducted from the ground. Just trying to get some numbers in relation to the adult to fawn ratio. So there is some variability on the actual numbers counted. And you see, like in 2005, going up to 160 deer counted in 2009. And then some of these other ones from 2012 to 2020, pretty much less than 100 and something mule deer. And the spring fawn ratio, pretty much up and down in relation to what's going on with the population and what recruitment and how bad the winter was and how bad the drought was in relation to what carried over through the spring. Area 20 mule deer population estimate. This graph illustrates a 40-year period. The population from 1980 to 1990 is a shared model from the X12 California unit. The dramatic rise and fall on this population starting in 1999 was because we took out the apportionment of what we thought was living year round in Nevada, and that's why that you see that dramatic drop in 1999, and then consistently running it out. But the population, pretty much from 1999 to 2012, the area population has remained static. Area 20 X12 buck harvest trend, all hunts. We have some peaks, in 2012 to 2013 where bucks harvested were pretty high. And then prior to that, buck harvest was pretty in the middle there, 300 and some animals. And then starting in like 2018 to 2019, California and Nevada decided to, drop tags significantly just because the resource wasn't available. There's another slide of the area 20 4-point or better bucks harvested at all hunts. It's maintaining, a 33% success rate on 4 points or better. And then area 20, this buck harvest, all trend, all hunts. Basically all the bucks, it was about 100 bucks in that 2016 to 2019 time frame. And then area 20 spring fawn ratios, there was a high variability starting in 2011 where California Fish and Game usually conducted the surveys on the California side and the Nevada side. And then helicopter flights were stopped. And from that point on, spring surveys were all conducted from the ground, which related in, smaller sample sizes and not the same amount of country covered. And so that's why you see those drops from like 2012 to 2020. Mule deer population declines. The population of mule deer have been steadily declining westwide. Impacts that affect population declines include drought, overutilization by feral horses and livestock, habitat degradation, human impacts, predation, and disease. Pinyon and juniper encroachment, the expansion of pinyon and juniper woodland stands, lack of fire in the right spots, reduced diversity of forbs grasses and overall understory, which kind of relates into like a monoculture of pinyon juniper. But it also, it can provide a thermal cover, but the problem is it lacks available forage for the deer to utilize. Solutions to PJ encroachment. Lop and scatter. Essentially, trees are selected for harvest. If a branch is left, regrowth will occur. Mastication uses machinery to chip trees into mulch. If chip piles are too large, it can suppress growth of understory plants. You can use herbicide treatment or pellet treatment. Prescribed fire, and letting naturally occurring fires happen in the right spots. Habitat conversion with fire, you can have a positive response after fire, predominantly on north-facing slopes. If a seeding is applied and successful, you can increase an available habitat tremendously. You can increase non-native or undesirable cheatgrass, and some fires can have long-term benefits, especially in pinyon and juniper woodlands. Successful establishment of beneficial non-native species. Snowstorm kochia, pictured to the right, is a high-protein, fire-resistant, withstand heavy grazing, grows to 40 inches tall in higher precip zones. To the left, Siberian wheatgrass. It withstands fire, heavy grazing, not the best forage, but better than cheatgrass, and can stabilize soils to allow for sagebrush and other plants to recolonize. Spring and riparian protection projects. Protecting water sources is important to preserve the functionality of the source, providing crucial riparian zones needed for mule deer survival, and allowing for adequate distance between feral horses and native wildlife at water sources is critical for native ungulate survival. Predation. Predators can limit population growth. Feral horses provide an additional anthropologic food source to mountain lions, which in turn increases lion populations in many Nevada mountain ranges, causing direct impacts to native ungulates. Coyotes, black bears, and golden eagles are the principal predators of mule deer. If predation is a limiting factor, you may need to implement predator control. The estimated populations for feral horses in Churchill County, there's different herd management areas, HMAs, but looking at the list and that, you have your low end of what they can go to that low end, or they have the high end. But a lot of the populations, like the Augusta, looking at the Augusta, their estimate is 366% over their high end AML. Same with like the Clan Alpines at 148%. North Stillwater, 679% over. South Stillwater's 294% over. The estimated populations for feral horses in Mineral County, the Marietta Borough range, 425, but 409% over. And then they didn't have any current data on the pilots, the Gabs or the PAL. Garfield Flat was 207% over appropriate management levels. Livestock overgrazing on riparian areas. Riparian areas are crucial to the survival of newborn fawns. Fawns utilize riparian areas to hide until they are big enough to venture out. Proper functioning of the riparian area is important. More cover available in riparian areas during the months of June and July will help conceal fawns from predatory animals. A healthy stand of aspen consists of 3 different age classes. A lot of times, in a lot of the places that get overutilized either by livestock and that, you'll see just pretty much mature trees with no recruitment. A lot of the young trees or the saplings are eaten. Water development can be important as far as expanding ranges and opportunities. Spring and riparian protection, also important. Most water development work in Mineral and Churchill County has been centered around bighorn sheep as well as pronghorn antelope with limited use by mule deer. We can look for opportunities on public land as well as private land for spring developments and guzzlers to enhance mule deer numbers. What past projects have been done so far in Mineral and Churchill counties? Some of these projects, like in Churchill County, we have quite a few fire rehab. But you can look just for some examples on the amount of money it costs per acre and how much is applied on the ground. A lot of times funding is divvied up different places. If we have huge fire years, there's either sometimes lack of seed and sometimes lack of funding. But some of the recent fires, like the Draw Fire in 2017, Endow seeded 3,089 acres, and that cost $130,446. The mastication, we've had mastication, lop, and scatter projects. And a lot of it's been occurring in the Desert because we got the Desert Mountain Habitat Resiliency, Health, and Restoration Project, which identified a lot of areas, and it was a document that was good for 10 years. But 14,000 something acres throughout the Desert. Some feral horse removals, and then, you know, pretty good amounts of springs and that we've rehabbed and protected. And a lot of it in the Desert Toyas, amounting to like $271,000. Projects in Mineral County. Jackass Fire, that was in 2006. 5,300 acres burned, and we seeded 2,000 acres. The Spring Creek Fire in 2012, 14,000 acres burned, and we seeded 2,000 acres at $93,000. Just a lot of these projects, the amount of money it costs is pretty significant in relation to how many acres you can actually really cover with that amount of money. These are some of the water development projects in Mineral County. Cottonwood, JS, Pronghorn, Baldwin, and there will be some limited use by mule deer on some of these, for sure. What can we do in Churchill County? We could try to seed 100% of these fires, especially in pinyon juniper woodland. We can try to use non-native species whenever we can. That'll benefit mule deer, mainly kochia. Ask for reductions in horse numbers to appropriate management levels. If horses are removed, and we know that a project's happening with horse removals, we need to try to enact some kind of predator management. So lions are at appropriate numbers for the corresponding prey source. So if 400 horses are removed that are contributing an additional amount of lions, we need to be right on top of it and say, you know, we need to remove this many lions that might have been associated with those 400 horses so that they're just not shifting straight to deer as soon as the horse is removed. We need to reduce pinyon juniper woodlands through mastication, lop, and scatter project, promote healthy brow species, and we need to protect spring and riparian systems with pipe rail fencing. What can we do in Mineral County? We can allow naturally occurring fires to occur in pinyon juniper woodlands, prescribe fires in north-facing slopes followed by seeding. We can use non-native species that will benefit mule deer, mainly kochia. We can reduce horse numbers to appropriate management levels. We can reduce pinyon juniper woodland through mastication, protect spring and riparian systems with pipe rail fencing. We can increase water development areas that will support summer mule deer. Mineral County has an extensive amount of bitter brush, but it doesn't have an extensive amount of summer range. So you can increase mule deer in certain places with the bitter brush component, but the summer range is limiting. And so you're increasing small resident herds into different areas, which will increase your overall deer population. Questions?
So Jason, this is Carl Arkeaga. A couple questions. One was, I think I heard you say that bears, coyotes, and eagles were the major predators on deer. So
Yes.
that's greater than.
Oh,
Well,
they
they
didn't
were
have lions on
above,
there?
paragraph above. I just wanted to check. I think I get what you were getting at. Okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say we don't have a lot of bears in Churchill County, but
No, that was only addressed toward
Area 20. Yeah.
Mineral County, I
So
guess.
on Mineral County, Area 20, you showed the graph where you, I think you said, taken out the deer that are resident in Nevada. What percentage of the population do you think is resident? If Mineral County has,
So it's 33% that we say out of the whole X12 Area 20 population.
so the majority of the summer ranges in California, and so that's what drives the population.
Yeah. And the majority of all the winter range is in Nevada. The summer range in Mineral County consists mainly of the top of the Wasatch, the top of some of the burn and a little bit of Powell Mountain. There's places that have enough summer range that could support some deer in Mineral County, if you're okay with them, eating some of the bitter brush that's on winter range.
Thanks.
On that one graph you were showing, I understood that we killed 140 deer in Area 20 back in, was it 2010? I don't even remember having that many tags.
Yeah, that's combined with X12.
That's what I figured. That it
That's
was
combined with X12, but then that model is a combined model.
Okay, it just said that one before it was the two combination, but that particular one said was Area 20, and I said, wait a minute, we've never had 100 tags, let alone over 140 that, because if we had 140 animals that we killed, we either was 100% success or was 55. We had like 300 tags, and we've never had that kind of quotas here. So
Yeah, and the thing that happened with California a lot is that for early in my career, they used a lot of different models. So they went 1 year to a different model in their population. So there's years that they shot a lot of deer, but they went from having 10,000 mule deer 1 year to having 4,000, and then back to like 10,000 the following year. And so you saw a lot of that where they made recommendations and the harvest went up and then went way down and then went way up. I don't know if that balanced out or not.
have they got any input on what their tagging has successfully done this time around?
They have not provided a report on everything that they've done. Tim Taylor's the biologist. I know he's going to be soon retiring. And that's pretty much, I think, probably his last project that he'll have to write up
Because I
before he
was,
retires.
one year we had red collars. The next year we had pink collars. This past year we had flame orange collars. And they must fall off because we're not seeing as we're going. And the ones this past year, like I said, flame orange. When I seen them down in the trees walking through, I'm going, who is walking down there wearing hunter orange? And I got to glass them, and they were does carrying color. It looked like it was a good. what a big wide band it was on them. And then this last fourth of the across holiday weekend, I was over on Sonora Pass and observed several of does on orange collars in the Sonora Pass area. And so again, like I said, I wondered what data they were gaining off of that.
Or, I mean, in this, it's a citability of like on a mark and recapture premise is different because they have associated colors for the different years that they do have. They were having some people go out and try to count some on the ground and that, but a lot of it was citability out of the helicopter as like a mark and recapture. It's a popular.
So like I said, that orange was
Years
pretty
into it
easy to
now.
see.
Yeah. It'll be interesting at what they come up with as far as a report.
Yeah, what the migration were and what the movements were, because I figured that's what it was all about. But it was just quite interesting I was out there this last year looking to see, wondered if I'd find any more of either the red or the pink, and there was those orange ones, and I'm going, wow, what is this all? So it's been like they somehow or other the collars are being removed every year because we don't see a repeat of the collar colors from the next year to the next year. So I
Gotcha.
figured maybe they fall off over there and they go get them. I don't know.
Well, some of the collars that they have the satellite on, yes, they're getting those collars, but nothing that I know with any of the mark and recite collars that they're just observing.
Okay.
And I'm not, I was never a fan. They're pretty bright and they're pretty attractive to a lot of predatory animals, but
Yes.
it is what it is.
No, I guess the only thing that I have to come up with or a question about is, okay, this is our first meeting and hopefully things will be start rolling, but I think we've got the same problem that Churchill and Lyon has, because we're all in this together, is we don't have the habitat that we used to have. We have too much habitat. We have too many trees. I've got pictures of the Aurora area back in the mid 1900s, and with deer herds were monstrous in that area, and there was no trees. They were all of the pinyon juniper was used in the mines, and now the pinyon juniper trees are 10 feet high and bushy, and everywhere we used to see deer, there's nothing but trees now. So it's one of those things that I think it's a lot of encroachment has took the food source away and made it habitat for predators to take the deer down so they don't get around them. Where if we had the trees gone, the deer can outrun them.
Yeah.
Can't find them.
I think some of the first big projects that we could work on, especially in Mineral County, is expanding around our riparian areas. whether it's Truman Meadows and different places where we have natural water. I know we have horse concerns over there as well, but there's places that I think we could manipulate habitat with pinyon juniper removal and expand some of those riparian areas, which will help with resident mule deer. And then there's other places that is traditionally winter range, and if you wanted to, you could develop water in some of those areas, but it's not, in my opinion, it's not going to make a ton of mule deer. But will it make a few more resident deer? Yes.
Well, I know we talked about that Summit Spring area, and I know we missed the circle on trying to get heritage money for it, but that used to be years ago. That was a great area, and I was back in those days when I didn't know what I thought I knew. That was a wood cutting area, and the people were in there cutting their firewood for the winter, and they were just cutting all of the pinyon trees down. And in that time, there was the sagebrush rebellion was going on, and they were trying to get stuff to do to promote wildlife. And I said, at that time, I thought, well, they're taking all the trees out. So we got all of that stopped, and the trees have come back. Now the deer are not there. So now that I know what I know, the reason the deer was there is because the trees were gone.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, then,
they wintered there. I mean, you could go there in Thanksgiving and you would see just park in the road, and you'd see 20, 30 head walk by every hour, walking by your car, just parked it in the Summit Springs area. So it was quite something. And now there's deer in there, but not the numbers there used to be.
I'm sure you know, Glenn, but last year we started a pinyon juniper lop and scatter project going up Baldwin Canyon itself. So we are working towards progress on reducing some of the PJ encroachment. It is a slow process. And we also, just this past weekend, Jason alluded to it earlier in his presentation, we completely rebuilt and increased the capacity and storage of JS Pronghorn and Baldwin. So hopefully the deer will get keyed onto those and maybe help keep a few more resident deer around as well.
Yeah. It's the one thing that I noticed a couple of years ago is I sat on the RAC committee too, and we helped fund the pinyon juniper removal over in the canyon above 9 Mile and China Camp and up in that area. And the only thing that I didn't ever remember we funded is we funded the pinyon juniper removal, but the Forest Service went in and put in 5-strand barbed wire fence all around all the water holes in the streams of water. And I'm going, okay, they must have used their money for that. But they put in 5-strand barbed wire fences with the aluminum foil on the top strand so the deer could see them. I mean,
That's probably the sage grouse flagger, but I'd have to look at projects on those springs though. I'm not aware of those projects.
But they put they fenced the water streams of water and water holes off after we done the pinyon juniper removal. And I'm going, well, that'll keep the cows out and the horses maybe. But I first thought, well, they're keeping the deer out too, but the deer can go over them fences if they can see the wire. And so that's why that's what I figured they put the foil on the top strand for, so they could see it. But yeah, they went into those streams up behind China Camp up in there and done all of them a couple of years ago. And then last year, they done the backside of the Wasatch, and I was across that. But yeah, we're hoping that things can be done.
And most of all those projects have been, of course, centered around the bi-state sage grouse, which has secondary benefits to mule deer.
Yeah,
that's what these projects are about is the bi-state sage
Yeah, that's
grouse.
what they come and got the money for, was sage grouse habitat for the RAC committee that I sat on, and we funded that too. So yeah, I knew what that was funded. That's why I said, why did we fence off the street? Why did we fence off the water holes? Because sage grouse can fly over them fences, so. But yeah,
Yeah.
that was, and over in that area, I have seen sage grouse. It's just on the backside of the Wasatch, I'm going, well, that pinyon juniper removal, I haven't seen too many sage grouse in there, but it is better for antelope. With antelope run, that's pretty good in there.
Yes, it's definitely help. It'll help with the antelope and those two
Yep.
new builds for sure.
Yep. So those are things that we're seeing out there all the time. And like I said, it's that fire that we had across Mount Hicks and all of that. The first year was pretty good. Last year, the most successful area that the animals come out of was Truman Meadows. They got the majority of the deer out of Truman this last year. They got a few out of the Mount Hicks area but we never really had the snow to make them come into there to work it. But there was some nice deer took off of Powell Meadows and Truman Meadows this last year.
Yeah, and that fire up by Mount Hicks and all that, that is a potential area that wouldn't have any negative impacts to the wintering mule deer if you wanted to work with the Forest Service and add water.
Yeah.
You definitely could get, because there's lack of water in there, you could definitely increase a resident herd throughout that burn scar for sure.
Yep.
Just away from the natural waters that we know, which is the Aurora Mine and then that whatever sheep camp up on top.
Right. Yeah, you got
And then
the sheep camp.
there's
that-
water that pops up by the cabin, but there's not a lot of other water in there.
No, that the sheep camp one has got a pretty good stream flowing all the way down below, almost to the power line. Goes down that back canyon. So then there's a couple of them up on the south side of Hicks that were running, but the fire didn't get over there, so that sagebrush is still pretty tall.
Yeah. And then the only, like issues in Mineral County is just, like I was in there, a few weeks ago, and even right now, it's just that the bitter brush is still alive, but it's extremely dry.
Yes,
And that's one of the biggest things, is just how dry even some of that winter range
Yep.
stays throughout the summertime.
it's in all reality, there's more deer being seen on top of Lucky Boy, TV Hill area than resident. I'm going to call them resident because they're seen in that area pretty well year round.
Yeah.
In the TV Hill, down low, not up high, down where the cabins are on top of Lucky Boy on the summit. They're not much higher than that, but there's a lot of does works that area in there.
Huh.
George Matthias has a cabin there, and he's got most of them named. He goes up and sees them. They come through his area quite a bit. So,
Does he have water there or no?
I don't think he has any out. They're in that area around that mine now. There is water that comes down the road coming off of TV Hill. There's water that spring up high, and they've got it piped down. It runs down the road, runs down pipes. There's a pond that people have put in on the north side of the Lucky Boy Road. There's a pond just up off the road, so that may be why there's in there, because there is a pond that they've captured that water in.
Gotcha.
So there's a few things going on out there.
Do you have anything, Joe?
Well, about the only thing I have is just looking at like the horse numbers that your screens are showing. The carrying capacity, the lowest I saw was 200%.
Yeah, no, it's a state, I mean, it's a statewide, and that's what they're posting of, when they actually do a count, and sometimes their census counts don't come in, every 5 or something years, so some of them can even be, and, all that, Lyon, Churchill, Mineral, those amounts of horses that are in some of those upper pastures and that, they're, in my opinion, they're competing with all the mule deer in the same areas, especially on springs, for sure.
That's about the only comment I have, though.
Okay. Cassandra, do we have to do a public comment period or?
You need to move to agenda item number 4
Okay,
and see if there's public comment and give it a minute.
okay,
And then if you don't see any hands go up in the attendees, the virtual hands, then you can close the meeting.
okay, sounds good. We'll take a short break for public comment. Please submit any public comments to endowgame@endow.org. And I guess we'll take a 1-minute break for comments. I guess no hands went up. As far as public comment, Cassandra?
There is no public comment.
Seeing none, I guess we can adjourn the meeting and we'll reconvene sometime to look at some of those habitat limiting factors that you guys might want to fill out and make recommendations.
So Jason, that's the path forward is we'll meet again, but.
Yeah, I'll have to see what's going on with what the next level is going to be as far as after the presentation and where we go from here in relation to looking at potential projects and rating potential projects and then sending them forth to the subcommittee where they'll evaluate them and approve them or deny them as far as going forth.
You say they're gonna send those down to us, or we already have them, or I hadn't seen them before tonight, so of course I haven't looked for them either.
No, we can send them in a paper form or electronic form or something to
You-
committee
You're
member.
gonna send the forms out? I haven't seen them before tonight, or have you already sent them out?
No, I haven't sent them out yet.
Okay,
Once the forms have to be officially approved by the Oversight Committee, and then they'll be sent out to each team.
okay,
And in the meantime, you guys can also schedule a field trip if you want to look at past projects or past fires that you think might be beneficial to moving forward.
okay.
So I guess we'll adjourn the meeting at 6:57 PM.
I'll second the motion.
Okay. Maybe all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
See you guys.
We'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Thank you.